Buzz in progress, buzz in progress. Direct overhead, coming hot. Direct overhead. Gang stalking event. Air stalking. Your taxes. For psychological warfare, helicopters flying directly overhead. Okay, so I'm here with Jan Brennan. And I had some, we're doing a second interview here on the 19th of October. And so, Jan, thank you very much for joining me again. And because I realized that we both were just talking and we're saying that we're both getting hit by energy weapons. And because I had a headache and like dizziness, and you said that you had your some DEWs turned up against you.
Yes, you know, every time we connect, Richard, we both get hit really hard. And, yeah, they turned up my dues, which for me is microwaves and sonic acoustic weapons. And they also started messing with my email and my YouTube. And this all started about 5 minutes ago. And they knew you and I were about to talk. So, yeah, it's par for the course.
Yeah, okay, well, I guess that means we're on the right track then, because, you know, as I was saying to you earlier, I think that we really have to face these things because this is the only venue we have. I mean, we're getting life-threatening, life-ruining weapons and stuff being thrown at us with nothing we can do, and it is really a problem. Okay, so Jan, first question I'm going to ask you is, the alien Gray told you that you had been doing compassionate child care for eons. Do you have any more information about this, like maybe memories of past lives and details about this, or no?
Well, first of all, it wasn't a Gray. I don't know how to describe this particular alien, but I would not call this woman a Gray. She was tall, almost like a tall white, I guess. But my memories of her are fuzzy, but I would not call her a Gray. And as far as other memories, I have lots of memories of being on ships with children, with hybrid children, and just various ships, but nothing really specific, except she did say that I was chosen because of my compassion and that I've been doing this for years. And like I told you, I'm an autism specialist, and I've always worked with children. So this, you know, really kind of makes sense.
And do you remember any specific details? Like, if you remember one incident where you were taking care of children, can you remember how many children there were and what the environment was like?
Okay, the clearest memory I have, it was a round room, and there were built-in seats, almost like leather. Everything was white, very white, and it was a big round room with built-in seats around the edge, and I was sitting on the floor amongst maybe about a dozen children. Some were fully alien-looking, and others were hybrid-looking. And some looked human, so there was a real mix. And what this woman, this really tall, bald, albino-looking woman was telling me, she said that these hybrid children need love and affection, and apparently these aliens, a lot of them just don't have compassion. They're very fascinated by human emotions, the heart. And they've chosen me, and they do follow me a lot because I do tend to have a big heart, you know, and I'm very emotional. This fascinates them. But anyway, she said that they need humans to interact with these hybrid children because they find that they need the nurturing that they can't provide.
Okay, that's really interesting because that information matches exactly what Dr. David Jacobs says. And has witnesses saying, and also very similar things from Barbara Lamb and her book Meet the Hybrids. Yeah. So, do you think, though, because you know, you obviously also witnessed that you've had memory tampering. For instance, the Gray that you said came up to you and gave you a shot, and that's where your memories end.
Right.
Do you yourself think that you have been a surrogate mother for hybrids?
I do, although I don't have the kind of memories that a lot of abductees do. But I do feel that I have been used for the breeding. There's some personal things I kind of don't know if I want to share.
Of course.
About that?
Of course. Okay, and so, and you probably think that this happened more than once?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
See, I've seen UFOs my whole life. I'm nonchalant about it even. It's like a no-brainer to me. And so I know this has been going on my whole life. So, yes, and I have a lot of memories of, scattered memories of being on the ships. But, so, yeah, I'm sure I'm part of that hybrid breeding program.
Okay, and do you have any insights as to the purpose? Because according to Dr. David Jacobs and other information, the program is not just scattered here and there, a few countries, few isolated places. It's like, worldwide and massive in scale, like almost like a mass production. I mean, just by the numbers. Do you have any sense of what it is, and do you have any, and if I can ask an additional question with that, which is, do you have a sense of good or evil about it?
Wow, that's a good one. Actually, those are questions I'm wrestling with myself now. It's really hard to say. I do believe it's massive. I do believe it's worldwide from the things the ETs have told me. And again, I'm calling them ETs. I don't know if they're interdimensionals. I don't know if they're demons. I don't know, I just know that some seem benevolent and some seem malevolent. But anyway, according to the benevolent ones, they say they have been abducting everybody. They said that almost everybody, they told me back in 2009 that they abduct everybody, but most people don't remember it, and they block themselves even from remembering. They sometimes don't have to wipe memories even, people, because it's too shocking to the system, and you kind of go into shock. But anyway, according to them, they've been interacting with us humans all along, and all of us.
You mean from the very beginning of humans on Earth?
Yes.
And you said
that was my impression.
And you said all human. Like not just even.
And I challenged them on that. I said all. I said all. They said all. They were emphatic about that. That we have all had contact, all of us.
And it's just a huge question. Why? What are they doing? What's the reality that we're facing? Let me ask you the next question, because this pertains to that. What do you think Jesus would say about these creatures if you were to imagine Jesus telling you what this is, what these creatures are, or what this abduction program is? What would he say?
Wow. I don't know. I imagine him saying we're all children of God, and they are children of God too, and we're all interacting with each other, and we're all one. But really, that's a tough question, Richard. I mean, go to God with that one.
Sure. Yeah. Well, actually, so if it's interesting what you say that they're all God's children as well. And that kind of gets to another question that I have, which is that do you think that God has a purpose with this? In other words, would Jesus have said, this is happening, because of something else that needs to be accomplished? In other words, could we even be inappropriate to try to dig it up?
A lot of my beliefs now are based on things I've learned from you recently, Richard. Like, how recently you said God has the upper hand, even when we get rebukes, and even when Satan attacks us, like you and I have been so heavily attacked. but that God has the upper hand and that there is a bigger purpose. So really, my answer is based on what I've learned from you.
Okay, well, then I know my own opinion about it. Let me ask you this. You mentioned several incidences where it seems others did not notice large alien craft you could see, and the multicolored one that everyone on the freeway didn't see, and that you noticed that the people that were on the freeway and the people that were with you in the car seemed to be in a trance, and that's kind of part of why they didn't see it. Do you think that, I'm sorry, do you think that these craft are all around us in the sky, but only abductees are allowed to see them?
I absolutely believe that 100%.
Okay, and why would they be all around us? What are they doing?
I don't know why, but Earth is a focal point right now. We are totally surrounded, and when they uncloak for me, what they've shown me, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of ships, I mean armadas of ships around me, and it's like I look around and people are in a trance, they're not seeing it. But what they have indicated to me, and again, keep in mind, ETs can lie. So some of the things that they've told me, I'm not saying are fact, I'm just saying what they told me. But what they have told me is the sky is covered always with tons of UFOs. It's a matter of whether they cloak or uncloak.
And this kind of, okay, I'm going to go to another question that's similar to this, but, and it gets a little bit back to the good and evil question. When you mention the men in black chasing you, and the gang stalking you get, and combined with the memory manipulation and the secrecy from the rest of humanity, doesn't it seem like it's an evil situation, like the whole lot of them are evil, and we are their prisoners or robots, basically doing what they want?
This is pure evil. But I don't believe all ETs are evil, if that's what you're asking. But what we're going through, I mean, this is literally a battle between good and evil, in my opinion. And this program is pure evil. But I do believe that Jesus is going to come, and we are going to be saved, and we are growing from this. This is God's refining fire, I think. But yeah, this program is just as evil as it can be. We are fighting Satan.
Yeah, that kind of gets to what I was going to ask about this. Is that, do you think that these beings, for the most part, are, either devils or aliens that are serving him, or are some of them not serving him, and yet they just don't want to open up humanity's consciousness to their existence? Because that's the real big question, and why people get suspicious about this. Because, how come the good ones don't open up human consciousness to the existence of these non-human intelligence, unless it's all just a good cop, bad cop thing? Where they're trying, like some of them are pretending to be the benevolent ones, but in fact, that's just a ruse to keep us kind of in the whole aliens game, kind of guessing which ones are the good ones, guessing which ones are the bad ones. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. See, I have the exact same questions, Richard. I mean, I still look back at my experience with the Arcturians, and I have no idea if they are truly malevolent or benevolent. I've had many people come forward and say, Jan, all magic is evil, and they were evil, and they were pretending to be benevolent. But Richard, when I think back to that time and that beautiful black ET, I feel such love, and I know that these malevolent ones can create false love for them. Being aware of that does make me wonder, are the Arcturians evil or are they good? And I don't know. So I relate to your question. I'm asking the same question myself. Right.
And do you think that Do you think that during the millennial reign of Christ coming up, which is going to be God's kingdom established in the earth, so in other words, it's going from the government of Satan to the government of God in the earth, where Jerusalem will be the capital of the world, and that's what the scripture says. Do you don't want to distract on that point as much, but do you think that God would allow this abduction and this whole alien situation during this millennial reign of peace and prosperity for the people of God?
I don't know. I feel like it'll end, but that's probably wishful thinking. I just feel like this cannot continue much longer. It's just getting worse and worse for all my TI friends, and you know how it feels. We are all getting hammered, and God, I hope this doesn't continue in the 1,000-year millennium. I hope it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a question I have, but there is one scripture that says that during the millennial reign of Christ, it says, and dust shall be the serpent's meat, which if you go back to Genesis 3, and it says that God says to the serpent, you are cursed above all the beasts of the field, dust shall you eat all the days of your life. And what do we know? Adam was made of the dust. So that tells me that there will still be serpents actually eating people during the millennial reign of Christ, which, that's kind of, if things are still that dark, then these alien abductions and whatever's going on with that hybrid program might still be going on. But this is all conjecture. We're just guessing.
Well, I hope you're wrong. That's all I can say. I hope you're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we can at least be comforted with is that it's not going to be like it is now. We're not going to have the same kind of situation. I mean, because it says that the people of God, they're going to have joy on their heads. So,
good, yes.
I mean, that's the hope. Do you know what has happened to any of the hybrid children that you cared for? Do some of them end up on Earth, or do you know of any?
The only ones I've met are ship commanders. A lot of them are ship commanders, and a lot of them are female. I don't know why. This has just been my particular experience. But when I've met with ETs that are hybrids, they look more human than alien. They tend to be female, and they're ship commanders. So I don't know. All I know is my little bit and what I've experienced. And so I know some of these hybrids are flying these UFOs.
And is there any sense of how you knew that? Like, I mean, was it more than just, some kind of interconnection? I mean, did you have some sort of sense of how you knew that these ship commanders or captains, officers, were actually hybrids that you had brought up?
Well, okay, one encounter I had was an out-of-body experience. I think I mentioned it in the first interview, but back in 2009, I had these recurring dreams where all these UFOs, these scout ships, were landing, and I was in a field with a lot of other people who incidentally ended up being the same people that were on Dr. Greer's UFO field trip with me. I had dreamed about all of them before, and we were in a field, and all these UFOs landed, and when the beings came out of the UFOs, they came out to greet us, and it seemed that the UFOs closest to us had female ship commanders that looked human, but had huge, beautiful almond-shaped eyes where you could tell they were hybrids. You could just tell. And they did some training with us. They took us up on the ship, and so I interacted. It just seems like a lot of those encounters were female ship commanders. And what's strange is I went to a UFO conference a week or two after the Dr. Greer thing, and I met Stanley Romanek. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's written some books about his experiences. And I described the hybrid ship commander that I met because she looked just like a woman that was standing by Stan when I was getting his autograph on his book. Long story short, they said, that is our hybrid daughter, that ship commander, because she looked just like this woman that was standing next to Stan. So I told him, I said, last week I had an encounter with a ship commander that looked a lot like this woman. And so they confirmed, they said, yeah, was she around 20, 21 years old? I said, yeah, they said, that's our daughter.
Wow. Okay, and so do you think that, okay, now let me ask you this. Have you been abducted since becoming a Christian?
No.
And you said that you recently remembered, or you remembered, at least to email it to me, that you had stopped an abduction with the name of Jesus.
Okay, this wasn't exactly an abduction, but it is bizarre. This was just a few weeks ago. I was on a YouTube channel watching a Christian channel, and they said, if you need a prayer request, text us a prayer request. So I texted. I said, I am what's called a targeted individual. I'm basically a whistleblower standing up against government corruption, and I'm being gang stalked and tortured and everything, and I need prayers. So I sent that prayer request. 3 minutes later, there's a knock on the door, and it's a real familiar knock, like a friend. They're making sure it sounds real friendly. And I peek in the peephole, and there's this weird-looking guy with white-framed glasses and like a Hawaiian-looking shirt. He looks strange, and he's knocking on the door. Of course, I'm not going to answer it, and I knew it was tied into my prayer request. I knew it. So he's knocking, and I'm leaning against the door, and I'm praying, Jesus, help me, please help me. He starts unlocking the door. He has keys to my door, and he starts pushing. He turns the knob and pushes on it. So I lean against the door, and I just say, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. And he stopped and left.
That's interesting.
What he did, he left a note on my door saying that he's an exterminator. And here it is Sunday night, like 9:30 at night, and they're sending an exterminator, and I have no bugs. But yeah, he left a note on the door saying, we understand you have bugs, and we sent an exterminator. I mean, that was a perp, and he looked weird. A lot of these ETs, I want to point out, look human, but they dress weird. That's one way to tell if you're dealing. I don't know why. They're, these guys are geniuses, but they dress weird.
Right, maybe they're geniuses, but they don't have a sense of like a certain kind of common sense. That's what actually Dr. David Jacobs was saying. That,
really?
Yeah, he was saying that part of what people like you are asked to do is to teach some of these hybrids just common sense, like how to take stuff out of the refrigerator, how to answer, like when you hand somebody the money, you can't just like not say anything. You have to, they have to teach them how to make small talk.
That's a lot of what I do. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
And so let me ask you this: do you think that Luke 10:19 applies to these aliens or what they are? And I'll just read that to you real quick. Luke 10:18, and he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. And then Luke 10:19, behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Do you think that these aliens are these serpents and scorpions, maybe?
I do. I absolutely do. I can't prove that, but I do think that Bible passage definitely makes me think of these malevolent ETs. Yeah.
Okay.
The reptiles. I mean, we're talking about serpents here.
And I remember, I'll swear on a stack of Bibles, I remember a lizard man in that office.
Right. That's what I think the reptilians are. They're the serpents from the Genesis 3.
They're devils. They're serpents. Yeah, that's what they are, literally.
And okay, now here's a scripture that's kind of related to this, and I want to just see what you think. And in the scripture, there are two kind of code words or phrases that I found. One is beasts of the field, and the other is fowl of heaven. Okay, so you got those two, beasts of the field and fowl of heaven. And in Daniel 2:3 says, "And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold." So this is in Daniel, and this is the description of the first king of Babylon, the first, I guess, major king of Babylon. And so this is Daniel telling him this kind of a coded phrase, but it sounds to me, now let me just see what you think about this as far as your experience with these non-humans, is do you think that these beasts of the field might be the Egyptian paintings of the, as we were just talking about, serpents, but not just reptile head, but also they have dog heads, and they have cat heads, felines, canines, and bird heads, like the one that's Thoth with the bird head, and then those are the beasts of the field. And then when it says fowls of heaven, maybe that's the humanoids, like the Nordics and the Palladians. Do you think there's, what do you think about that?
Wow, I would never have interpreted that scripture that way, to be honest. And it's food for thought. I mean, I took it literally, and as you know, I'm a newbie. So I took it literally. The beasts of the field are the animals, and the fowl, So what you're saying is very interesting and food for thought.
Well, let me just give you a quick scripture. Jeremiah 31:27 says, "Behold, the days cometh, saith the Lord, that I will sow into the house of Israel and the house of Judah the seed of man and the seed of beast." That's the scripture. Now, if you consider that God isn't going to sow beasts that are just regular animals into the actual house of the Jews, right? I mean, he's not going to sow pigs and dogs and horses and stuff. They're not going to be called Jews, all right? So I think what this means, and this is what it has meant to me, is that these beasts of the field, or beasts, there's two different explanations or two meanings for the word beast, and these beasts are both non-sentient animals, pigs, donkeys, cows, stuff that we're familiar with, but also these bipedal, high intelligence, high technology wielding aliens, and non-humans, wherever they're from. Maybe they're not from other planets. Maybe they're from another dimension, or however it works.
Right, we don't know.
We don't know. I mean, this whole thing, it's hard to put because if we haven't been out in space ourselves. But I happen to think that the moon landing really did take place, and that the story that William Tompkins tells of the real moon landing story, which is that when they landed, they got out, they saw a bunch of huge alien spacecraft lined up on the edge of this crater, and it was reptilian battleships. And they were basically told that you basically have to pack up and leave, and that's why we haven't been back.
Well, see, that was my belief for a long time until this recent thing with Buzz Aldrin. I don't know if I sent you that, but he was talking to a little kindergarten girl, and she was asking about the moon landing, and he said it really didn't happen. Yeah, that's what Buzz Aldrin said. So I've rethought, and if I didn't send you that video, I'll find it. But I thought that was pretty interesting, because I always had the same belief that you did, that we did go to the moon, and that we were greeted by some not so happy ETs.
Right. So you think that then, if that's the case, then all the stories that we've heard about, William Tompkins saying that he was actually listening at the intercom when I think it was Buzz or somebody else told him, we have traffic, we have giant alien ships lined up on this crater, and they cut that out of the news feed and everything. So you think that if what Buzz Aldrin said in the movie that you're talking about, I mean, if he really did say that and that was true, then all that is just deception.
I don't know. I like William Tompkins. Rest in peace. I like him, and I believed his testimony. I saw the thing with Carrie, I think you sent to me. But yeah, I like him, and I don't want to, contradict anything he has said. I'm just saying that there's a new video out showing Buzz Aldrin telling a little girl that they really didn't go to the moon. It doesn't mean we haven't gone other times. I just don't know. So really, it just brings up more questions in my mind. But no, I'm not going to dispute William Tompkins. I mean, he's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, don't misunderstand. I mean, I'm just asking the question because, I really don't know, and I think we have to keep our mind open that everything that we think we know is just, a lie or wrong or something else, and, we're just trying to get down to the bottom of it. But, like I said, I'm not throwing out any possibility. I mean, from what I've seen, I think we have, and I think that information, because I think the reason why they did that staging, and they even, may have started circulating rumors of us going, and we really didn't, was just to add confusion, and so that the people that are in the conspiracy movement looking into this will be, partially divided between some people saying, yeah, we went, and other people saying, no, we never did, and then everybody's lost in arguing, confusion. In the meantime, they can get away with whatever they're doing.
It's all about divide and conquer.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this. Do you think that God would have humans on Earth know the secret of these beings, be they Greys or Arcturians or reptilians or other non-human intelligence? Or would you say no, God would want to keep it away from general consciousness, such as it is now?
I think He would want us to wake up. I think it's up to us whether we're ready.
Okay. And I'm guessing the answer is yes to this, but let me just ask, do you think people have a right to know?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that the humans you have seen in these situations, like the humans that you said you saw working with these aliens, the Greys or whatever, during abductions, do you think that they have a good reason for keeping all of this a secret? Like, and this secret being, the greatest thing man could ever know, that we're not alone in the cosmos. Do you think that these people that are there, that they have a good reason for not, sharing with the world this whole thing? And what would you say that reason is?
Well, I'd say it's multifaceted. I think, number one, they could be threatened, and their families could be threatened, which I think could be the case. I mean, they literally cannot tell, or, their family gets tortured in front of them and killed. So that's one facet. Another facet, I think, could be mind control. So many people are under mind control. So who knows? A lot of these military guys working underground could be under mind control and threats, and who knows what. Some of them could be convinced that there's a very good reason not to tell humanity what's going on. So really, there's not one answer, I don't think.
Right. That sounds about right, or at least very intelligent, because I don't know anything myself. Did you ever see anything, or perhaps hear from the aliens about ritual child sacrifice or humans being eaten as food?
No, in fact, I never knew anything about that till I saw your channel, and I only found out about your channel not that long ago. So this is new to me. This eating babies and stuff, and the reptiles. I mean, I did see Greer shapeshift, but I didn't know what that was back then. So all this is new to me, Richard.
Okay. When you saw the overlay of a reptilian image on Greer, as you described it, Can you remember when you saw this thing that you were able to identify as some sort of reptilian dinosaur being? Do you remember what color it was?
Now, to me, it looked greenish to me.
Okay. And do you remember its mouth? And can you describe it?
It was more like, it wasn't like reptilian pictures I've seen since then. It was almost a dinosaur looking, I hate to say snout, I don't know, just a big kind of dinosaur face kind of, and greenish. And it was so quick. It was like he was yelling at me, and it was boom, a quick, like 2 seconds. And I rubbed my eyes, and it's like, am I seeing this?
Uh-huh. So when this because just to recap that, but I want, well, maybe you can just recap again exactly what happened, because you were thinking something and then he responded. Could you just tell that again so people can hear it?
Oh my God. Well, actually, in the original interview, I said there were only 50 of us in a circle. There were actually 100 of us. 50 of us, it ended up only 50 of us went on the UFO field trip, but when we were doing the training, there were 100 of us in a circle, and this was being filmed, so this is on film. But what happened was Dr. Greer had his back to me. He was in the middle of the circle, and he was doing this training, and I crossed my legs and crossed my arms and jutted out my jaw, and I thought, this guy has the biggest balls I've ever seen. I mean, I just could not stand him. And I, like most people, it takes a lot for me to not like a person. But I just had a visceral hatred for this man. And the minute I thought he's got the biggest balls, he whipped around, looked straight in my face, and said, it takes big balls to do this work. And I mean, I'm shaking right now because it really was scary. I can joke about it, but right now I'm shaking.
Was that the moment that he shapeshifted?
Yes.
And this reptile thing, was it? Let me just ask you this. I know it's kind of a tough question. Bear with me. Was it Greer yelling at you, or was it this reptile thing?
I believe it was Greer. It was Greer's mouth moving. It was Greer himself. I don't know. That's a toughie, actually. I cannot answer that definitively. Just to me, it looked like, Greer was yelling at me, but there was this brief overlay, this weird glitch.
Did you? I'm sorry. Did you see so when he was yelling at you, was it? You didn't see this reptile open its mouth. That was too quick, or what happened?
Yeah, I don't think I saw the reptile open its mouth. No, it was Greer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but who? I mean, if this flash of a reptile that you saw as kind of an overlay, I mean, let's take the instance that Greer is actually a human being, but he is, there's some kind of reptilian spirit associated with him, or what's happening here? I mean, if you saw kind of like an overlay, what's your sense about it, or is he a physical shapeshifter? What's your sense?
I think he's a physical shapeshifter myself, but part of me wants to say, well, it could just be, I don't know what you call demonic distortion.
Yeah.
I just hate saying that about anybody when I don't know.
Right.
But my feeling, and if you felt his energy and saw his physique, he looks like a short reptilian.
Right.
He's very reptilian, every inch of him.
Wow, that's deep.
Says he reeks reptilian. Now this doesn't sound good, but that's my feeling. But again, I'm scared of the guy. I really don't want to say anything bad about him when I can't say definitively
Right. And what do you think? What do you think about the fact that I told you that when I was editing the movie that we made, that YouTube defunded my channel over, and that when I edited the clips and put it on there, that I actually did not have any planning whatsoever the way it turned out, where Greer is actually making a sign with his hands like an overlay, exactly as you start saying that. What do you think about that?
I freaked out when you told me that. I think you just told me that yesterday, right? Or day before. I can't get over that, because all this time I've been thinking, man, that Richard Bruce is the best editor. How did he do that? How did he make Greer's hands do that motion of an overlay, right as I was saying overlay? But it's almost like an overlay over his face, it almost looked like. Well, all this time I thought it was you. No, it was God. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, I'm still shocked, Richard.
Yeah, because I just want to make clear again that, if I would, take credit for that would be wrong, and I didn't have that thought, because I didn't even notice that until after you were saying, yeah, boy, the editing was so good. And I'm like, well, I don't think it was that good. I even put that ridiculous footage in the front of it, screaming about, the helicopter and saying, Greer, Greer, and I thought, oh man, she's going to hate me for this.
That was cute.
But I mean, I just to be clear, and for the witness, I'm saying that I did not plan that at all. I mean, I edited that clip from the movie separately, and then I added it to the thing. So it just happened to end up there. Okay, well now the fact that Greer apparently read your mind, even quoting what you were thinking.
Word for word.
Word for word, in front of 100 people. Okay, so that was actually, it wasn't in front of 50 people, it was...
It wasn't 50, it was 100.
Okay, so 50 was the number of people that you ended up going on the...
field trip with. Apparently, the other 50 dropped out. I guess they got scared, but... yeah, that's where I got 50. Those are the ones that went on the field trip, but the ones that were in the training, there were 100 of us.
And how much does it cost to go on these trips to the desert with Stephen Greer?
Okay, here's what's also weird. I got in for free.
Ah, okay.
I got a free... Okay, here's what happened. Like I said in the first interview, when I first moved to Denver in 2009, I started having all these dreams and visions of ETs, all sorts of ETs coming to me, asking me to work for the light. And fight bad ETs, and so I got an invitation on my computer saying there's a UFO field trip with Dr. Greer, and a free invitation. Well, I get there, I find out everybody else had to pay but me.
Okay, and so chances are somebody was trying to get you to go, and I'm just curious, did you ever find out how much they had to pay?
No, I think back then, now this is 2009, I think it wasn't as expensive as it is now. I've heard one of my friends said, he charges over $1,000. I don't know. I don't keep up with Greer at all. I avoid the subject. But yeah, I don't think it was super expensive, but I do know that I didn't have to pay a dime.
Okay, and this once again is you got your DEW's directed energy weapon assault and a bunch of other terrible stuff that is with you to this day as an assault, just because you went on this contact in the desert thing with Stephen Greer.
Yeah, that's when my gang stalking started. Now there have been other factors that I've shared with you that made it worse. I've ruffled a lot of feathers. I've ruffled a lot of reptilian scales, let's say. But yeah, it really started overtly the day after the UFO field trip with Dr. Greer, when he threatened me, and he said his ET friends will kill for him. The very next day I started being gang stalked. Yeah,
could you just tell the story again about him saying that? Could you just repeat it again?
Okay, when we were in this training and he whipped around and he said it takes big balls to do this work, he said a few other things, and he was talking to everybody around the room. Then he turned back around to me, and he said, "My ET friends fight for me. They will kill for me." And I was with a guy, and he was looking at me like, "Oh my God, Jan, I'm scared for your life." I mean, he looked terrified. It was clear that Greer threatened my life. And why I went on that field trip after that, I don't know. It's like if someone says my ET friends will kill you, and then you go meet his ET friends, what was I thinking? But that's what happened.
Maybe you got mind controlled.
I don't know. I used to be fearless back then, and I thought all ETs were friendly because I've grown up with them,
Right, so
and
you've had abductions.
I think I have Stockholm Syndrome. I think I may have a little bit of Stockholm Syndrome in relation to ETs, or I used to, because I thought they were all benevolent.
Okay. And so now you were telling me that you've had abductions and contact with ETs, like you just said, all your life. And,
right.
And you've seen ships, and you've been on ships, and you have partial memories of being on ships, and also being a compassionate mother for hybrid aliens, because you said that these aliens don't have any compassion and that they needed you because you have compassion. Now, let me. Now, this is an interesting part. Can you tell the story about the cat talking?
Oh, this is so strange. I have a calico cat named Pumpkin, okay, and she is like any other cat. All she does is meow occasionally and purr like a normal cat. Well, in 2012, I don't know if I want to talk about that huge tubular mothership that I wrote you about, because it's such a long story. Okay, let's go for this. One morning at 6 a.m., I woke up with my two cats scratching at the covers trying to wake me up. And, it took a long time, but they got me out of bed. Then they both ran to the sliding glass door and scratched on it. So I opened the sliding glass door, I go out, and to my left is this huge silver tubular mothership. It's miles long, and it's just hovering there quietly. And so I get all excited, and I grab my, of course I run back and get my camera, and I'm taking pictures. And then to the left, I see this twinkling star. It looks like a star, like a huge star, but it's daylight. It's early morning, but there's enough sunshine when it's daylight. So I took a picture of the twinkling star. When I enlarged it, I saw that it was a scout ship. It's a silver tubular scout ship with 3 big round circular windows. And so that was interesting, and I posted it on Facebook and everything. Well, the next night, Pumpkin starts meowing and scratching at the blinds of the bay window. So I let her, I pull up the blinds and let her sit on the window ledge, and she starts, all I can describe, she starts meow talking. And I don't want to imitate it, it's too embarrassing, but she's using like vowels and consonants and questions. It's like she's having a conversation with somebody, and it's cat talk. It's not words, but it's a lot of syllables and consonants. I mean, things I didn't know a cat could even do. And she's waiting for answers. Like she'll go, and then wait, and then answer. So I pulled back the blinds, and there is that scout ship, the little silver tubular one. And the 3 round windows, since it was dark and at night, they were filled with lights. They were doing a little light show, and they started zigzagging, and Pumpkin was running back and forth on the windowsill, meow talking to them. I mean, it's the weirdest thing, and I'm embarrassed to even discuss it because it does sound crazy.
Yeah.
And I wish I taped it, but she hasn't done that since. But every night around 7 p.m., she would scratch at the blinds. I'd open the blinds, and she'd jump up on the windowsill, and she would play. She didn't talk to them anymore, just that one time.
Just that one
when
time.
I first came. No, only that one time. But every night for like 6 months, every night around 7 p.m. she'd scratch at the blind. I said, "Oh, Pumpkin's friends are here." And even on my Facebook friends, they said, "Oh, did Pumpkin's friends come by?" You know, it became well known on Facebook even. But yeah.
And did you ever get any sense about why that? Why was the cat having apparently a conversation with whatever the thing was in this craft?
Well, I think they were trying to get my attention. See, I'm kind of blasé about UFOs just because I've grown up around them, and so I'm blasé. I think they were trying to get her to get me to interact with them, but basically all I was doing was letting her up on the windowsill, and while she was playing with them, like on the computer or watching TV, you know, I just ignored them. I think they were wanting my attention.
So they were just controlling the cat for that purpose?
Yeah, I think so.
So maybe their ability to to mind control people could also apply to animals.
Oh, absolutely. And I've had a lot of incidents of that. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, that's I can believe that. I've actually just recently realized that sometimes dogs barking and stuff are actually it's actually some kind of control. That's another example of dog barking at me as I exit that coffee shop. I'm keeping a record of it. So yeah, once again, while that looks paranoid, but I said about that dog barking at me, that has been happening like every other time. As I started working on this second interview with Jan, I would get this, and it wasn't just the same dog; it was different dogs every time, and like viciously barking at me, or barking at me right as I exit that coffee shop. So it was to me more than a coincidence, because that was never happening before. I mean, I've been going here for years.
You're right about that, Richard. You're right. You're not being paranoid. You're right.
Yeah, because sounds totally paranoid.
Oh no, there's real things. I mean, I could tell hours of stories of animal things, but I don't want to get into that now.
Right. So let me just ask you again that if there are some aliens that are benevolent, okay, they really would want to help us, like you were describing some of these ones that are cloud ships. Tell me that about the ones with the cloud ships. Well, let me just finish the question. So, but why wouldn't the good ones want to help us by? Because see, I think all these abductions that are going on, and the abuse, and to memory wipes, and the pure evil that you were describing, I don't think it could really go on as much. I mean, it couldn't continue if humanity in general would wake up to the fact that we've got this going on, and we got to stand up and do something about it, because then there would be all kinds of measures, and then brilliant scientists would start to figure out ways to counter them, and figure out how to block their mind control stuff, and then we'd be fighting them full scale. And then their whole operation here couldn't go on, which seems to depend on humans being asleep, like the movie They Live, the little radar spinning around, sleep, sleep, sleep,
That's my favorite movie, by the way.
Yeah, it's quite, and what's interesting, I was just thinking this, that movie came out at a time when I was watching movies avidly, and I would have jumped on seeing that movie, and somehow I didn't even hear about They Live until just recently when I got into the Truth movement.
Really? I don't remember when I first saw it. I don't think I saw it when it first came out, but I watch it, like I bought it, I watch it once a week. That's how much I love it.
Just from you saying that, sounds like maybe they suppressed people from seeing it because it hit too close to the truth. But I'll tell you something else. I reverse speech David Icke after this guy, this psychic named Jay Essex, that was on the Supreme 600 channel with super soldier James Rink. And what he said was that he had seen that both Andrew Basaggio and David Icke were chaired. He said chaired, which is basically they were abducted and they were tortured and mind controlled, manipulated. But in any case, this that I'm going to tell you, this that I'm going to tell you happened after that. Something I discovered myself, which is that I was working with British documentary filmmaker Chris Turner, and I was looking through some of his preview footage of his interview with David Icke. And I took some of that and I reverse speeched David Icke talking about John Carpenter's movie They Live. And in reverse, David Icke says, "Asshole must seal," when talking about that movie.
Seal?
Yeah, must.
S-E-A-L?
Yeah, seal, as in you know, seal up, you know, keep secret. So he says, "Asshole must seal." I'll play that for you. I'll play that for you in this movie. I've got the clip. I'll play it right here.
This guy has at least some knowledge of what's happening. And as over Elon must seal. This guy has at least some knowledge of what's happening. And as over Elon must seal of what's happening. And as over Elon must seal.
What do you make of that?
Well, you know, I don't know, but it sounds like, you know, he really doesn't want people
To know the truth. He's what do you call it? Controlled opposition?
Well, you know, I'm not going to forsake the incredible work I think he did before he was, as Jay Essex put it, chaired, if that's true.
When was that, Richard?
I don't know. I don't know, because you can see it on the Supreme 600 channel on YouTube, and you listen. You can see he has several interviews with Jay Essex, psychic Jay Essex, and
Interesting.
it's yeah, very interesting what he says. So let me okay, so let me get to this kind of this other question. A little bit gets more to the, you know, whether the whole thing is bogus or not. Back to that question that I was asking you before about, you know, why don't some of the friendly extraterrestrials at least try to make humans aware? Because if they made us, and you know, some people may say, oh, that's very hard, but I don't think so, because how hard would it be to get some movie footage of somebody like me who would post it on their YouTube page, no matter who threatened what or who said what, and they can delete my YouTube page, but you know, I would have done it anyway, so the truth would have gotten out, and it would be like, you know, some dude standing right next to an alien. Okay, yeah, you see, it's not CG, it's this alien dude right here, and I'm a honest person, you know, I'm a Christian, I'm not going to get up here and get up here and lie about it. So I'm you know, and say, and you know, use this clever CG footage and make this big BS story to try to make some money on YouTube. Okay, so and you know, people would look at the footage and examine it and everything. You know, hopefully it'd be in high def. You know, but see, how hard would that be? And you know, how hard would that be? And just to get that footage out, and then humans see that's, if that happened, Jan, then people would, you know, people would start to realize, holy crap, this is real, and so in general, the population would start to, you know, work towards doing this. So that begs the question: really, are there any benevolent aliens? Because why wouldn't they do that simple thing for us? Or is there, you know, I mean, there could be a reason. Now, don't get me wrong, there could be a reason, like the Prime Directive, and they can't interfere for whatever reason. And I believe some of the people that are talking about it, for instance, Peggy Kane says that there's a shield grid around the Earth, and Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot has interviewed several people who have said, yeah, I think one of her contacts said that, what's his name, Richard something, I forget his last name, the pilot who's the spaceship pilot who's now in jail. Anyway, that guy says that seems to corroborate, and also
yeah, I know who you're talking about now. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and that also Simon Parks, of course, is a regular interviewee for Carrie Cassidy, and he says he agrees. In fact, he was describing in an interview with Chris Turner that there are physical machines that are creating the shield around Earth to keep aliens out and to keep us in. So if that's the case, then that would explain why we're not getting benevolent aliens coming and you know, just announcing themselves so that humans could wake up to it. So these these evil aliens that are using us are keeping all other aliens out. And that's been my theory for a while, but again, I don't know. Maybe it's all just, you know, that all that's just deception. And to that point, if you'll bear with me a little longer here, let me ask you if some of these lines from Revelations and from Mark, you know, may be a clue that all of this is not what we think it is, okay? So let me just read this to you real quick, and bear in mind that these two quotes from Revelation and Mark are similar in a similar aspect that you're going to see here in just a second. Revelation 6:12, and I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. Now notice the similarity to Mark. Mark 13:24. But in those days, after the tribulation, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars of heaven shall fall, and the powers that are in heaven shall be shaken. Notice that with those two verses from Revelation and the two verses from Mark, in the first verse it says the sun and the moon, okay, which at least we know the moon is a spherical heavenly body. You can just tell by the shadow it's a sphere, okay? So there's none of this, you know, guessing that it's, you know, it's not a sphere. And I can zoom in on it with my Panasonic and I can see the craters, okay? So you know, I'm pretty sure that is about what we think it is, and or you know, it's a good hologram, but in any case that's a sphere, right? So we have in the first line of both of those from Revelation and Mark a description of the sun and the moon. And then in the second part it says the stars, okay? And it says the stars, it's the same phrase telling us that it's the same thing, stars of heaven, okay? And so, you know, I mean, the question is, what do you think about the possibility? I mean, this as absurd as, you know, the Christians that we are, you know, mad against for saying there's no aliens, you know, and no other, you know, aliens on other planets or anything like that. Could they be right? Because or you know, something like that, and in reality is not what we think. Because why would it say, if it gives us two heavenly bodies that we know about, the sun and the moon, and then it says the stars of heaven shall fall? What if those little lights in the sky aren't what we think that they are? They are some sort of something else, and they actually fall to the earth.
Literally, like, yeah.
Or whatever they are, you know. I mean, I'm just saying. What do you?
People say they're beings, right? Have you heard that?
I probably have heard everything, but I just was wondering what you think about that kind of, because that's so weird. I mean, I know that the scripture is, you know, has many allegories for things, and that could certainly be one of them. But it's just, you know, that question keeps coming up for me. What is that?
Yeah. What could that mean? I wish I knew. Gosh, I wish I knew. Now, I'd like to go back to what you were saying earlier about, you know, are they all malevolent maybe and playing good cop, bad cop? And what I really believe there are benevolent ETs, and I do believe they are trying to reach us. But people don't believe people. Like I've been contacted, I believe, by benevolent ETs. I do think they're trying to reach us. And, you know, people have taken pictures of UFOs, and, you know, scoffers are going to say, well, that's CGI, or that, you know, if they're not going to believe, they're not going to believe, you know? Yeah. So.
Okay, well, thanks for that opinion. I think I tend to, you know, just to let you know, that's what I tend to. I don't think that creation is so small that it couldn't be, you know, but then again, maybe what's happening is they, you know, one of the thoughts that I had about that and why I asked that question is that another thought, and I'm sure you've had this thought too, is that there are extraterrestrials, but what's happening is they're from another dimension, they're from the demonic realm. And so even though there's other planets in the demonic realm, what's happening is that all of those beings from that realm may have kind of a different character. For instance, maybe they are all spirits.
Right,
and so they can come into the physical, into this realm, but what may be happening is, like, when people get abducted and go on these ships, what really is happening
Yes.
is that they are transferring to another dimension. So their whole being and everything is actually going into a different state.
Oh, Richard, I'm so glad you brought that up. That was a point I was going to make, too. These benevolent ETs, they're in a higher dimension. It's a different dimension, so it's not as black and white as them coming up to you, shaking your hand, and you take their picture. It's a lot more complicated than that. Like, a lot of my ET contact has been when I'm in the meditative state or I'm out of body. So a lot of this is on the astral realm, so it's hard to photograph and really have solid evidence and bring it down to a 3D level.
Right. Yeah, I think something like that is probably the case, and that
that's a real good point.
So maybe even, because it's a different dimension, that these what we call demons are from that dimension, but that doesn't mean all the beings in that dimension are devils.
That's true. We can't generalize about anything. We don't know anything. But yeah, we shouldn't assume that just because, like, for instance, the fourth dimension is a lot of negative stuff, but it doesn't mean it's all negative.
Let me ask you something, Jan. You mentioned that these owls show up. Now,
Yes.
Now let me ask you this, okay? Because the thing is, the movie about alien abduction, the fourth kind.
Right.
I basically debunked that because they are actually saying in that movie, without disclosing that it's all an act, they are actually trying to claim that these are actual events and that the footage in it is actual events. But in fact, if what you're saying here is true with these owls or this owl symbols, it could be that it's true. It's just that they somehow felt it was wise to tell a lie and say that their so-called video camera footage was supposed to be real, when in fact I know for sure that there was an actress in it. I forget her name, but
right.
So
I know exactly what you're talking about, Richard. I did. You sent me that movie. I didn't like it. I thought it was insulting. But what they do with controlled opposition is they mix like 90% truth with 10% lies. And it's like a glass of water, maybe 99% water with 1 drop of arsenic, but it's enough to kill you. Now, that movie, I thought, did a great disservice to contactees and abductees because it tried to, convince us that this was real footage, and you find out it's an actress. So it really, and I felt manipulated. I did not like the movie. But that being said, they did bring up something that hit home with me, and they talked about white owls. And it's like very few people know that component of UFO sightings. And I can tell you my background with the owls, if you'd like.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
What I noticed that a lot of times when I would see a UFO, I would hear an owl hooting. But what I found out over the years is that it sounded mechanical. It would be 2 sets of hoots, and I'm not going to imitate it, it's too embarrassing, but there was a certain cadence, a certain sequence of hoots, and they were always the same, to where I realized after a few years, this is a mechanical, this is coming from the UFO. I always felt like they were saying, we're with you. And they usually showed up a lot when I was moving. Whenever I'd move from one place to another, the night before I moved, there would always be the owls, just the sound of owls. And it's the UFO saying, we're going to follow you wherever you go. Now, I thought that was a good thing, and I thought they were benevolent, but I found out they're malevolent, and that's another story. But back to the owls. When I had that encounter with the Arcturian, and I was mean to him, the very next day I came back to that park hoping to see them. and I was greeted by two black helicopters, and, I mentioned that in the first interview. Well, after the incident with the helicopters, and I took out my cell phone to take a picture of them, and they hightailed it out of there. But I continued walking in the park, and I came upon the tree where the alien had been standing, and there were two dead white owls under that tree, and they were big. Now, I don't think I've ever seen an owl up close before, but two big dead white owls, and I was like, holy crap. And the feeling I got was that you killed us. These owls represent the UFOs that have always followed me around my whole life. Now, what's funny, I have not heard an owl sound since then, and that was 2012. And the feeling they gave me was that you killed us. We were your protectors, and you killed us. Now, I hope I'm misinterpreting that, but that's the extent of my owl experiences. So when you sent me that movie and they mentioned white owls, I flipped out. I've never heard anybody else talk about the connection between owls and UFOs. So the fact that that movie had that right doesn't mean it was a good movie.
Right. And what do you think that the owls, because just so you know, or you may already know, that owls are considered to be like a Illuminati or maybe even reptilian devil symbol. It's a symbol that they use to indicate something or other having to do with Satan or something like that. What do you think? What do you think about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, look at Bohemian Grove. Look at that giant owl. See, all these years I connected owls with wisdom and love and goodness, right? Now, I am just now finding out that this is an Illuminati symbol, and what I'm finding out is maybe those Arcturians really were malevolent. Because right after I diss them, there are two dead white owls, and now I find out owls, have to do with the Illuminati. So yeah, I'm learning a lot, and I agree with you. That symbol does represent, basically Satan in my book.
And to get back to that point about the mind control and manipulation, because one of the conclusions that I solidly came to when you compare the information of Dr. David Jacobs with hybrid researcher and experiencer Barbara Lamb is that many of the people that have had abduction experiences like you have say that they have experienced the most wonderful love that they have ever experienced, and that they spend the rest of their life waiting for and looking for if they can only experience that love again. Yeah. And what Dr. you really, if I highly recommend his book, The Threat. And by the way, he didn't come up with that title. That was the book publishing company. But he does very good work. And what he determined was that there are people that absolutely had traumatic experiences of having their flesh assaulted, and painful, very painful situations that was underneath the memory when he dug deeper in hypnosis of the most wonderful love they had ever experienced. So if that's true, and I think it is, because he's very by the numbers about it, and it makes a lot of sense. It could be that the positive feelings that you had about the Arcturians was in fact a projection, and in fact, it's really not, the whole guilt that you felt about being mean to them was actually misplaced, because your initial reaction of "get the hell away from me" was right.
That's what I'm finding. It's taken me years to come to this conclusion that maybe they were indeed projecting false love onto me. It feels so genuine and so deep. And, I had a near-death experience where I believe I encountered Christ. And the love I felt for Christ is the God, that E.T., that's the kind of love I felt. It's deep, it's spiritual, and this is a hard conclusion for me to come to, because what do we do? How do we trust our instincts then about anything? Like, if we feel love for somebody, it's like, is that false? I mean, what do we do? Because they are able to do that, apparently.
Well, that's why I think we have to fight, because, I mean, what kind of a life do we have if we can't even trust our own feelings because there's somebody coming in and manipulating us?
Right.
Now, let me ask you about this this time that you experienced being abducted, and you said that there were gray aliens, military men, and medical type personnel working on each of us. My estranged husband was on the ski lift in front of mine, and I became hysterical, begging them not to hurt him. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, that was horrible. That was horrible. Okay, this was 2012, and this was shortly after I saw that huge silver tubular mothership.
Okay.
Okay, so I think I was taken into that ship. And my memory is that there were a lot of humans on this ship, and they were all in trances, but they have a hard time putting me in trances for some reason. So I was alert, but we were on this kind of conveyor belt type of thing that reminded me of ski lift chairs, and we were all naked. I mean, these are humans. And in front of me on the ski lift is my ex-husband, my estranged husband, Matt. And there, as the ski lift goes forward, there are these doctors and ETs examining and doing something to each human. And I was behind my husband, and when they got to him, I became hysterical and was screaming, "Leave my husband alone." And there was this gray alien. He was probably about, 4 feet tall. I don't know how tall he was. But he started mocking me. Now, I've heard of grays since then, and I've never heard of anybody say they act like this. But this gray started mocking me, and he said, "Leave my husband alone, wah, wah, wah." And I had a mind meld with him, and the feeling I got was they said, "We've destroyed your marriage. We did that. Ha, ha, ha," kind of thing. And so I became hysterical. He came at me with a syringe, and then I don't remember anything after that.
Wow, that's brutal.
Yeah, that's not a fond.
And so this
memory.
this gray, and you said that it spoke English, and it wasn't being telepathic. It was speaking with its mouth.
That part is hard. I don't know. My memory is that he was actually speaking, but, I've read since then that it's really telepathic. It could have been telepathic, but my memory of it was what I was amazed was how human-like. It's like, I was thinking, these ETs can be assholes just like humans. I mean, they can be real jerks. And I just remember he was acting awfully human-like,
Yeah. Now I'm curious about this scene where you were with your estranged husband, and on this kind of ski lift conveyor thing, and you said that you saw military men. Were those humans or aliens or what?
It looked like human military men to me. Now aliens can look human, so I can't make any conjectures on that. But it looked like human military men, grays, and I don't know. There were other beings that may be the mantis, but that part is fuzzy. They were just real tall with big eyes. So it was shorter grays, taller somethings, mantis maybe, and military guys. And this was, like I said, on a silver tubular mothership.
Wow. Okay. And then, and then you said you also saw some medical type personnel. Were they human or alien or what?
I see white coats.
White coats. Okay.
I don't know. That part I don't know. I think they were human.
Okay. And you said that you have hazy memories that you were taken on a huge round mothership, and that you were asked to take care of lots of hybrid children in a large, round nursery-type room. Can you describe that scene a little bit more?
Yeah, like I said, I don't know measurements very well, but it was a rather large, round room, and like I said, it looked like there were built-in seats in the edge of the walls. With kind of a soft, it wasn't leather, but I don't know. It was nice and very bright white and round. And like I said, I was sitting on the floor. My memory is just sitting on the floor, and to my left was this very tall. I don't think she was a gray. I don't know if she was a tall white, maybe. But she was telling me, you know, that they really love how I work with children and how I've helped the program so much, and that these kids need love, and that I've been doing this for eons. The word they use is eons. You know, I don't have many detailed memories of the ship itself, just a big round room. Wow.
See, this is really interesting. I mean, because this is, you know, this is going on, and the question is, you know, I mean, and if these aliens are saying that it's happening to everybody, and actually, I've heard that before.
You have?
Yeah, I've heard that from another source, which is that it's actually everybody is being abducted. It's not just, you know, maybe even a lot of people. It's actually everyone.
They told me everybody, and I've never heard anybody else say that, so I'm surprised you've heard that.
Yeah, I forget where I heard it, but somebody was saying that it was somebody who was, maybe it was somebody who was interviewed by Barbara Lamb for her book, Meet the Hybrids. But
I'd like to see that if you ever run across it, because I'm the only one that has ever been told that.
Yeah, or maybe it was an interviewee of Carrie Cassidy. And do you happen to, did you ever have any sort of, because they said eons, that might mean even past lives, and do you have any sort of sense about what that is, or memories of it, doing work?
I do get a sense that past lives, yes, but I don't have any specific, and I do believe in reincarnation, even though I'm a Christian. I do believe, I don't think that contradicts the Bible at all. And I do know for a fact that I've worked with kids. I've always had a thing where if I go out in public, kids will swarm me. I mean, and autistic children will start speaking to me. And their parents will say, you know, Johnny has never spoken in his life. And that's why I ended up training as an autism specialist, because these kids gravitate towards me. So I do think that this has been, I think that alien was right when she said I've been working with kids for eons, because it's really been, you know, a big part of my life. Shortly after the Dr. Greer UFO field trip, and I started being followed by black SUVs, I noticed I developed these skin, it looked like acne at first, and I have real clear skin. I've always had nice skin, and I just noticed like acne that wouldn't go away. And so my face ended up being covered with dime-sized bleeding lesions for many years. So I went to a doctor in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Now, I don't remember the year. I don't remember the year. But he said that he said it's called Morgellons, and he explained a little bit about it. And he said, you know, what you do is you take Septra DS, which is a sulfur-based antibiotic. He said that he's cured Morgellons patients.
Say that again so that the people can hear it clearly. What
this doctor recommended, and I'm not saying this is a cure, but this is what he recommended. It's a antibiotic called Septra, S-E-P as in Paul, T as in Tom, A-R-A, Septra DS.
Septra DS.
DS. And he said it's a sulfur-based antibiotic, and you need high doses for long periods, and he said that will kill Morgellons. Well, what happened was I remembered having an allergic reaction to sulfur before, so I didn't take his protocol. But what's interesting, Richard, is a week or two after I saw him, I saw an article in the paper saying that he had been stripped of his license, his medical license. And then a few weeks later, I read that he killed himself, this doctor, and I knew that he had been murdered because he was treating Morgellons patients.
What was his name again?
I have no idea. I think it was Martinez or something. It was in Santa Fe. I don't remember the doctor's name at all.
Okay, and that's really an interesting thing that I think a lot of people would be interested in, because Morgellons is a common affliction for TIs, as far as I understand it. And yeah, I've even seen people in my hometown that they just have these big sores all over.
Oh, it's horrible.
And
it's horrible. Yeah, and it's it's viral, bacterial, it's yeast. I mean, they're hitting us with everything. So I don't believe just antibiotics or just antifungals can take care of that. And as I told you, I think today I sent you an email about this. I don't have Morgellons anymore because they hit me 3 years ago. They hit me with microwaves for the first time, and it was all night, and I couldn't move. And I got up, and my face was swollen and red, and all my lesions were gone. And I don't recommend this cure, but radiation will kill Morgellons. So I don't have it anymore, but I'm being hit with microwaves.
That's interesting. So they kind of helped you out a little bit.
They helped me out. I mean, but what was interesting is I fought that disease for years. I tried everything, and then overnight I get hit with dews, and it's gone. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword, because now, I look like I'm sunburned and my hair's all fried because I'm hit with these microwaves all the time.
Let's talk about the Men in Black. And you said that you were coming back from the grocery store. What happened?
Oh my God. That's probably the scariest thing I've been through yet. This was 2009. This was shortly after the Dr. Greer thing. I was coming home from the grocery store, and I noticed a black SUV pulling up to my apartment complex, and they were pulling right up to the stairs that come up to my apartment. So I slowly drove by as these men in black got out of the car, and they watched me drive. So I thought, well, okay, I'll sneak in the back. So I drove around to the back of the complex, got my groceries, and was coming up the back, and they both had gone around the back, and there were a few yards ahead of me. And so they were ready to chase me. So I ran. I went to the right and ran around to the front of the complex. And I used to be a really fast runner, and I was literally being chased by men in black while I'm holding my groceries. So I run up the stairs, and they come up the back way, and they meet me, and they're right in front of my door. And these guys are huge. Now they look human, totally human. They don't look like that tall white, by the way. They're just human guys, but they're big. And they both are standing in front of my door. I squeeze past them. I say, hey, guys, real casual, squeeze past them, get into my apartment, and lock the door, and just about faint. And for some reason, they weren't allowed to touch me. It's real weird. I thought, okay, I'm dead meat. When I came to my door and they were standing at my door, it's like, okay, I'm history. But they did not touch me. It's like they had strict orders not to touch me.
So what was the visit for then?
To scare the shit out of me, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, it was shortly after my Dr. Greer thing. And
so an intimidation tactic.
It's intimidation. It's intimidation. That's what it is. They really, they feed on fear. We basically are dealing with entities that feed on fear.
So, do you think it's all unified? Like, the Men in Black, the Arcturians. I mean, because it kind of, when I was looking into the alien abduction thing with Dr. David Jacobs, The Threat, and Barbara Lamb's Meet the Hybrids, and all the other people that I looked at, John Mack, Jacques Vallée, and all these different people. And one of the things that that kind of sticks out is that there's just a similar energy. One hybrid even said that when she was at a event of kind of like a UFO conference that she said the energy was very ET, and
Yeah.
so it just kind of, like maybe that's just the vibe you get from off-world beings, and it's just very different from the Earth vibe that we feel here. But it's almost like I think I'm sure you've had this thought, and we discussed it. But I just, do you think that that really what we're dealing with is something that is, it's more unified than what we might think? Like, even though there may be even, just like we have people from different countries, but they may all have one purpose or one sort of underlying reality to it. Do you think it's unified? I mean, like, because one of the things is, like, there was one abductee who was saying that there was positive. It's just like your story. He says that there were ones that were doing negative stuff to him, and then some other ones that were trying to help him and do some positive stuff. But as I looked at it, I said, well, how can these really be different factions of aliens abducting this one guy, and he's the only guy who knows about these certain contacts and nobody else does? And it just doesn't make sense. It would make sense to me that really it's like the same thing. There's just different ones. I mean, what do you think about that?
That's a tricky question. Everything's unified, so that's tricky. I think there are a lot of different ET races that work together and are unified, yes. Like I think greys and reptilians and maybe mantids work together. I think it's like human species. We may have races that work together. And I don't think it's all unified. We're all good and bad. Or I don't know exactly how to answer that.
Well, your mind seems open to what it could be, what it couldn't be, and here's what would help me is that if I could have contact with a positive extraterrestrial, okay, like let's just say I could get talking to a Palladian or something, and I really knew it was an alien, but we had an extended relationship where I could ask kind of ask some cross questions and get to know that person. Then I would start to have a sense, okay, that there's something here. The problem is humans don't have any ground to stand on how to judge, because all we hear is all we hear is stuff from other people, and you can't get any sort of solid sense like, okay, there's really some nice people out there. It's just that right now Earth is under the control of the bad ones. And
right.
I understand why you get these Christians feeling that this whole alien thing is a deception, and I don't want to be that simple, yet I can understand where that feeling comes from. So yeah, I'm trying to get to the bottom of this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set forth my intention, which is that I'm going to find out what's going on here with these non-humans, whether they're whatever they are, the Greys, the reptilians, and what the situation is, and I'm going to put a stop to this abduction, because it's clearly not right. There's something wrong, because why would they be keeping it a secret? Why would some people report that they've been hurt very badly and traumatized? Why would some women report that they are forced to have hybrid children, and others may say, well, they're cool with it. But there's others like Carla Turner, and she said,
oh, I loved her.
And isn't she great? Her. And her witness is very clear. She's a doctor, okay? Her witness is very clear, and she says that this is wrong. We have a right to not have this happen to us, and we have a right to stand up and fight it. And that's and if there's anybody out there that I trust, it's her, people like her, people like Dr. David Jacobs, people like Bud Hopkins, who before he died also, he's passed on also. Carla Turner passed on also. Both of them said that when they looked at this whole thing, these were not nice beings. Period.
No, this is fundamentally wrong. It's evil.
So,
it's just wrong. We don't allow. What do we do if someone's abducted and raped in real life? I mean, they're you know, well, if we had a fair judicial system, they'd be sent up the creek. But we allow aliens to do this? No, it's fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and so, you know, whatever the case is, I think that, you know, and I'm just a guess, but I would think that God is not telling us that we can't do something about our world here, even if, you know, we know everything else. That's the underlying more important thing, which is to come to salvation in Jesus Christ and to come away from and be sure and make an enemy out of Satan and fight him, because that's, you know, when Paul said that, you know, I've fought the good fight, and that he meant the fight against evil, the fight against sin, but more importantly the fight against Satan, who's behind it all. And, you know, it's hard for non-Christians and, you know, UFO interested people to wrap their heads around something that sounds so cliche, you know, sounds so like, you know, oh, you know, you have to believe in some old religious wives' tale of some sort of devil that actually is so evil that he's constantly trying to corrupt us and pull us down into hell. But it's all there, and it's all connected to this whole UFO thing, and that's one of the biggest challenges we have, is connecting the ufology, the aliens, the ships, the technology, the secret space program, all this stuff with the underlying story, because it seems like they're two different things. You know, it's like that's why you have these Christians saying, no, there's only demons, there's no aliens, because it's hard for us to connect those two paradigms, those two realities. But in fact, it's all just here. It's all just the picture.
It's the truth. And you know, God gave us the authority to trample on, what is it, snakes and scorpions?
Right.
So, I mean, we're here to do this. I'm not one of those Christians that says, oh, I'm waiting on Jesus to save me. We're here. We are warriors for God. That's why we incarnated here, and that's why we're going through this. We are fighting Satan.
Yeah, that's my opinion. And let me ask you something. What is your opinion of, and what is your experience of MUFON?
Well, you know how I feel about them. When I was in Denver, I went to a MUFON banquet. I don't know, it was some sort of an anniversary. And I was very excited, and you know, I've been seeing UFOs my whole life, and I was very excited to be connecting with other contactees. Well, you know, I'm really shy, but I made an effort to go around and mix and mingle, and you know, ask a lot of questions of the top people there. And you know, it didn't take me long to realize, I mean, this organization is evil. And I actually, in the middle of the banquet, I stormed out, and they saw me storm out. They're full of shit. That's just my opinion. And
describe, you know, did you see anything, or was it just because I know you're psychic, but did you see anything, or what, that made you think that?
No, you know, what's funny is I don't even remember the specifics of the conversations I had with people there, but I just remember thinking, these guys have their heads up their asses. I don't know. I wish I could remember some specifics. I kind of erased it from my memory because all I knew is MUFON bad. But yeah, I can't think of any specifics. Just that they're not on the right track. I don't think they're. I don't know.
When was this? I'm sorry. Could you tell me again what the time was, and where did you go?
Let me see. This was Denver, and I think it was. You know, a lot of this stuff happened around 2012. Ironically, a lot of the things that have happened to me, but I don't remember the exact year. But it was a banquet. It was in Denver. And it was around the time, you know, I had met Greer. It was after that time. Okay,
so you went to that MUFON meeting after you had been to...
I believe that was after, yeah.
The contact in the desert with Greer from when your gang stalking started. And,
exactly.
So, and because, I mean, I was just interested to hear that you had that opinion, because I went to a local Los Angeles MUFON meeting called UPARS over here in Studio City, and I kept going to it, and every single time I would go, you just wouldn't believe what would go wrong. Like people,
Really?
yeah, people would just, like, every single time I went, every single time, not most of the time, every time, there would be somebody talking or making some kind of distraction where I couldn't actually hear the speaker, and I'd have to get up and change seats. And aside from that, Jan, this church where they held this meeting in Studio City, I had this big, gay pride sign, like right in the front of the church. And when you go into the church, there were these big, like, they look like they're from Dracula's castle, kind of chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, with these big, candle chains, dark black chains and everything. And
a dungeon look,
yeah, and the whole thing looked, and I was getting buzzed by helicopters every time when I went in, and brrr, like they really didn't want me to go there. And there's this guy.
Those helicopters love us.
Yeah, and there was this guy who was the director of that, Steve Murillo, and he and this other guy were sitting in front. And I remember one time when I went up and was applying for my badge because I was going to get a year membership, which I did. And I remember distinctly I was uncomfortable with them.
Really?
Distinctly uncomfortable.
Me too.
And then when as I was finishing up, Steve says to me, "Okay, and now you can go," because he could totally tell I was something I felt nervous around him.
To bail, yeah.
Yeah, and this is where I met Barbara Lamb, and.
Oh, you met her?
Yeah, I met her at one of these UFON meetings, and yeah, I didn't get to talk with her that much, but enough. Excuse me.
Cool.
So excuse me, my throat got dry. Let me okay. So then, but let me just tell you something else. Then they had this guy there, and this guy was a mentally handicapped person who they bust in to come to these meetings every time. This guy must have weighed 300 pounds, and it wasn't fat. I mean, that's how big he was.
Oh, just big.
Just huge. But he was mentally handicapped, and he was very loud. And so every time it would turn to the questions, which is one of the most interesting parts, because then the questions and answers, the audience can get in line to ask the speaker some questions. And every time this guy would go up and basically make a mockery of the entire meeting, and it was so it was so ridiculous that what I couldn't believe was, why would any rational people, why would any, why if they were going to have an intelligent meeting that people wanted to attend so that they could edify themselves on matters of extraterrestrial contact or other paranormal phenomena, why would they allow this guy to? I mean, as much as it's good to to have compassion for mentally handicapped people, this guy was so. Let me just give you kind of an example. He'd be like, "Yeah, I want to know about that," and he would just go on and on and on. And so, just to make a long story short, it made it discredited the entire thing. Even if you felt compassion and you want to include people who may be challenged or whatever, I mean, it was clearly inappropriate. I mean, no one with their common sense intact would want to attend meeting after meeting. So I got the feeling that whole thing was just it's just a fine, first of all, to maybe target anybody who might be interested in it and turn them off from this whole subject just by that whole thing.
That's wild that it wasn't just a one-night meeting. They brought him every time.
Every time.
That is a little odd. Yeah, that is a little odd. I mean, there are no coincidences, so there's a reason behind that, some sort of distraction or deterrent.
Well, yeah, I think it was that whole thing. I think is MUFON is just a controlled opposition. That's the conclusion I came to.
That's my feeling, and I hate putting down any people or organizations, but
I think that I think that they may have started out as a genuine organization, but as usual, what happens is Satan waits for you know, some people to come in and you know, and then once it's good, then they'll, you know, have these agents come in and
infiltrated.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I don't, you know, like I said, and also, again, I wouldn't speak against all the people in MUFON. I just think that...
no, I don't want to generalize.
Yeah, I think that, you know, what's happened is that it just gets used, just like a lot of things, you know, it just somehow it gets used.
Well, it's like you and I have talked about how a lot of us wish we could make a TI community because we're all spread out all over the world and we're all isolated from each other, and it'd be great. But, you know, my fear is it would be infiltrated like so many things are.
Yeah, I was thinking that one way we could do that is to not make it a democracy, but put it, you know, kind of a more, you know, a king sort of situation. I had to use that word. It's not a good word for a meeting. But the problem is if you have a supreme, you know, somebody who's you know, truly in charge of the whole thing, making final decisions on what we do and what we don't, and that person is a true Jesus Christ has come in the flesh Christian, who's not, you know, so easily going to be, you know, controlled to you know, demonized or whatever. See, I think that what I was telling you about what happened with David Icke and Andrew Basago is can't happen to someone whose king is truly Jesus Christ, even if they're, you know, saved or not saved. If their king is currently Jesus Christ, I don't think that they can be controlled. There's one guy named Joe something or whatever. I don't know if he wrote the book Unholy Communion. And
it rings a bell.
Yeah, Joe Schimmel or something like that. I forget his last name. But his book is called Unholy Communion, and and it's not a good book. I mean, if you compare that to something like what David Jacobs put together, it really doesn't tell you anything. You know, I mean, the faithful are the faithful, and you're preaching to the choir. You're not offering any new information, any scientific information, because I think that there's a difference between scriptural, you know, analysis and scientific analysis. You know, one is, you know, it's all subjective when we're talking about the scripture, but another is scientific analysis. And I think if you're going to do a book on that, I think he should have been more professional. But he's an example of somebody. Even so, somebody who started out in MUFON, and actually he became a Christian because of his work in MUFON when he began to realize.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
His story is that the people that he met in the organization that said that they stopped abductions were Christians that cried out, "Lord Jesus," and the abduction stopped. So I think that you know,
I believe that
it's a mixed bag.
That.
You know, it's a...
Yeah, we can't judge. Yeah, I mean, not everybody with MUFON is bad. Yeah. So
anyway, I think that's probably great for now. And you know, was there anything else that you wanted to add to that, or any other subjects you wanted to cover?
No, I mean, there's a ton more we could talk about, but I am getting a little tired. So yeah, if you want to wrap it up, that's fine.
Yeah, I think this is probably great, and so appreciate once again you talking with me, and you know, remember that you know, anything that comes against us because of this, you know, we're only doing a small part, but I think we're doing our part for Earth to tell them this information, and I think it's really critical and helpful and absolutely important that people like you come forward, because see, I don't have any of this kind of experience. I mean, I have a few little tiny little white UFOs that show up on my little, you know, chopper videos, you know, but, you know, I mean, you have been abducted and met aliens and all this incredible stuff.
It's been my whole life. It's my whole life. Yeah.
So it's just, you know, it's really important that you, you know, because I know that you were very, you know, it's very scary to come forward, especially, you know.
It is scary. You've helped me become more courageous, Richard. I appreciate that. I did not want to come forward with this information at all, and if it weren't for you, I wouldn't. Although I have tried to write a book, and they keep stealing my material, so I have tried to write it, but I'm not brave enough to, you know, give interviews per se. But you're so charming. You twisted my arm.
Right. Well, I hope I didn't charm your way in, but you know,
No,
I
no.
think that what I was going to say is that, you know, I know that it's very scary for people to come forward and share this information, especially because, you know, humans tend to be so judgmental. I mean, I was even judgmental. I was saying to, you know, I said to myself, you know, if I don't know if I want to talk about the talking cat thing because that just sounds too ridiculous, but
It's so
I want to,
crazy.
I want people like you to be able to share, because see, that was something that happened the same as some of this other stuff, and I know you're not crazy because I've been talking with you for months now, and I know that you're rational, and probably all this stuff did, and plus all the other, you know, research that's been done, and this is really happening, so I know that this stuff is real, and you know, I want other people like you to be brave and come forward and talk about this, because I think a lot of people that are negative. See, the people from Barbara Lamb's Meet the Hybrids, that was a, you know, the reason why I used that as a counterbalance is because the people that are in that have a positive view generally about the extraterrestrials or non-humans that they've encountered.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay,
so
yeah.
that was the difference between Dr. David Jacobs and his book The Threat, because basically he's saying that, you know, I mean, the title of the book kind of says it all, but, you know,
Right.
I can tell you the contents of it are very good and are very much similar to Bud Hopkins and Carla Turner, which is that these things are not, you know, they're not our friends. They're not nice. They're not. There's not. You know, when you add it all up, it doesn't amount to, oh well, they're just nice, super advanced beings that may not be quite as, you know, they're not as gentle as we would like, you know, from a human sensibility. But generally, you know,
Yeah.
they're just doing their scientific
Yeah.
thing. No, it's not that.
Like
It's
doctors and yeah.
yeah, it's not
no.
that. It's they are, you know, they are evil. You know, they are.
We're dealing with evil here. You know, all my life being around aliens, I always thought they were benevolent. It wasn't until the last few years that I realized, you know.
Yeah, and it's so unpleasant too, because right, it's so much nicer. See, this is why you have so many people that, you know, just don't even want to go near the subject. But before I forget the point, which is that the people that have a positive view of these ETs, guess what? Are they TIs? No, they don't get this. At least I don't think so. But
I didn't think of that.
but
I didn't think of that.
yeah, the people that are, see, I think the people that are TIs are people that they know, either through time travel or psychics or something else. They know that they have woken up to the fact that they're not exactly our friends.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why we're targeted. We know too much. And yeah, what I'm finding out is the aliens that come across as benevolent, you got to be careful. You know, I hate being that way, but you know, they can make you love them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we gotta do something about it. And so I just encourage everybody listening that, you know, if you're an abductee or you have an experience and, you know, you're too ashamed to tell anybody, I think you should. I think you should be open about it. You should share it, especially if it's, you know, I mean, Jan is an extreme case, you know, of wow, you know, like, but it doesn't have to be that interesting to make a difference, because if we all keep it to ourselves, that's exactly what they want. And if Jan has her experience right and the information that I've collected is correct, we've got to liberate our planet is what it comes down to. And Dr. David Jacobs agrees with me, because when you ask him, he says, what's the point of this whole hybrid program? I mean, what is it? What's the whole story about? He says, planetary acquisition.
Wow.
Okay? I
Is
remember,
that what he says?
that's what he says, and I've got it on video.
Planetary acquisition through creation of human-like hybrids.
So,
Oh, man.
so, you know, if he, who has done, you know, this guy is a patient, you know, he was a University of Pennsylvania professor, and he is saying something as you know, dark as that. It's, you know, some sort of dark science fiction movie that we've seen, you know. But if he, a genuine researcher, is saying that, and that matches what Bud Hopkins and Carla Turner, both very respectable UFO researchers, have said, then you know, I think that matches the overall vibe that I'm getting here, and that I think it's the picture starts to become clear, and therefore that means if we keep it all to ourselves and we say, no, I'm too ashamed, or I'm worried about looking crazy or whatever, then that's what keeps all this going, and we can't get more serious people involved because everybody's just too intimidated. We as humans have to stand up and fight. So I encourage everybody listening, please join Jan in showing courage and coming up here and sharing her story on my channel, and post it on your YouTube channels, post it on your social media. Don't be afraid. Do it. Get it out there.
All right. Amen.
All right. So thank you very much, Jan, and let's keep on rolling.
Okay, Richard. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jan.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
But anyway, the Lord we kept ascending up above the earth's surface, and we went way above the earth's surface. We're still in a tunnel, even above the earth. There was still like a whirlwind around us. I couldn't see it, but I knew it was there. And we went way above till we came out of this tunnel. So at that distance, now we were way out in space. So the earth was like just a ball, So I was way out in space. And I know that, again, sounds far-fetched, but, the whole thing's crazy. But it's not. It's the truth. So, and as we were out in space, it was just phenomenal to see the world hung on nothing. It says in Job 26:7 that He hangeth the earth upon nothing. It's hung on nothing. There's nothing holding it up, and you see it there. It's amazing. If all of you could see it, I'm telling you, astronauts, most of them get saved that go out in space when they see all this, because you just can't believe that this thing's hung there and turning so perfectly. And the Lord's allowed me for a brief moment to experience His power, to feel part of His power. I could feel the control He has over everything. I mean, just a piece He let me feel, because I saw the vastness of space and all the stars and all the planets. And He's in control of every one of them, and there's billions of them. And everyone has a name for them. And He knows everything that's going on everywhere. It was just mind-boggling to feel the power He has controlling all that, and watch the earth turning at 1,000 miles an hour so perfectly, and the water not spilling onto the land. I look at the ocean and think, what's keeping it from moving? It could spill onto the land just a little bit. It would wipe out a lot. But God holds the land there, holds the water in its place. And I knew that He understands every thought man has. Every bird doesn't fall to the ground. He knows every hair on your head. All that came into my mind, rushed in my thoughts. Just being with Him to grasp that power that He has. It's unbelievable. He's in control of everything. There is nothing He's out of control in. Okay, so we sometimes think that God maybe doesn't hear our prayer, or why is He missing it? He doesn't miss anything.